Hi, everybody. I am here now. I'm just sharing to a few places. If you will please be patient, I will be with you very shortly. Can you hear the people singing the song of angry men? It's the music of the people who will not be slaves again. Okay, thank you for sharing for me. Please continue sharing. I You'll be able to see me in just a second. There I go. How are you tonight? Great song. Can you hear the people sing? Hi, Deborah. Hi, Dolores. Deborah said I had to watch an Oliver Stone DVD with hubby last night. Was it a good one? Hope it was. Carmen says here. Dolores says hi, all. Hi, Dolores. Carmen says great song. It is a great song, isn't it? Kay says hi, all. Glad to see you. I would have loved to be able to make that the music for my show, but I can't afford the royalty as yet. Kay says, hi, all. Glad to see you. Jeffrey, hello, smart people who ask questions and are not afraid to. And Deborah says, history of U.S. wars. Oh, God. That's probably a really good one. I haven't seen that one. Wow. Thank you for sharing. Turns out there are a lot of people here tonight. Okay, let's get into it. So, of course, Trump uh, came in with both feet, interested in getting Mitch McConnell. I think he finally figured out that Mitch have been screwing him for months. Maybe he finally figured out that Mitch cost him the election. If he'd aligned himself with the Democrats to give people $2,000 a month income during COVID, Trump would probably still be the president today. Probably Biden would have been shrieking about fiscal responsibility all through the campaign. But things didn't work that way. Trump wasn't paying attention. He didn't know what was going on. He spoke to Mnuchin too much. He didn't speak to Mitch that much, but he sure supported Mitch on the Amy Coney Barrett deal. Anyway, I'm sharing this article from Dave Dayen today on Sanitized. A miracle on Pennsylvania Avenue. And a picture of the White House. Behind these doors, Donald Trump completely destroyed Mitch McConnell's painstaking plans and possibly his future as the Senate Majority Leader with one video. Well, I certainly hope you're right. I don't know. Mitch is a tenacious frog. Tenacious. Anyway, Dave says, I've never been a fan of this joke about what the writers, quote unquote, are serving up in this season for the Trump years. It's just too cloying for me, but last night was definitely a very special Christmas episode with a plot twist. The story so far, Congress, after 9 months of dithering, passed a COVID relief bill attached to a year-end omnibus that funds the government until next September. Is practically the only thing Congress has passed all year. Seriously, it was bill number 29 that has made it through both houses of Congress. Lawmakers attached all sorts of other legislation, non-controversial and otherwise, making it a 5,593-page monstrosity. That's longer than the Affordable Care Act, people. Quote, what I did in the legislature this year, unquote, package. We know this story. It's good relief, a lifeline for struggling people, but not enough to bridge to a time when mass immunization lifts the crisis and returns the country to normalcy. Into all this walks Donald Trump, who'd been well focused on other things like overturning the election. Trump dropped a 4-minute video last night, which combined McCain-style whining about pork barrel spending, a stroke of populism, and classic vindictiveness. That's a beautiful description of what Trump did. He started by decrying wasteful spending in the relief bill, tallying up a bunch of funny-sounding programs, amberjack fish, ha-ha, Asian carp, poultry production technology. I believe all these programs are in the omnibus section of the bill, not the COVID relief section. First, it's a stupid gimmick to define programs in a couple of words that are actually pretty vital. Poultry production technology would add efficiencies and perhaps save lives in the production process. To use one example, here's an entire conference about it. Second, the spending, while not wasteful, also doesn't add up to much. The 14 programs explicitly identified $3.849 billion in a bill of $2.2 trillion. Between the $1.3 trillion net discretionary spending and the $892 billion in COVID relief, they didn't make it over $900 in COVID relief. Imagine that. It didn't even get to the $908 billion. Isn't that incredible? And remember, only 188 of that $908 billion was going to be new money. So what was it? 172 billion, that was new money? God. Trump went on to say that the $600 direct payments in the bill were ridiculously low, quote unquote, that he wanted $2,000, gesturing toward cutting the wasteful spending and using the proceeds. Trump doesn't understand federal financing still. Trump didn't quite say he would veto the whole package, just that he would, quote, ask Congress to amend, quote, it. For the record, He probably doesn't understand that after December 31st, Congress is gone. They're gone. It's December 23rd. For the record, it would cost $380 billion to increase the value of the payments by $1,400, and Trump identified $3.8 billion. I did the math. His calculations would add $13.91 to everyone's check. But the numbers sound big in nominal terms, so he gets away with relying on the innumeracy of the public. But who cares about the cost when people are suffering? We have skyrocketing poverty and falling personal income. Checks for $2,000 are obviously better than $600. Aides intimated that Trump was just venting, but he spoke a Bulworth-style truth. The checks are ridiculously low. My thinking has shifted on this. The flotilla of economists and wonks took to Twitter yesterday to explain, actually, there's a lot more than just $600 for people in this bill, and that's only 1/5 of the total spending. That's all correct. If you've been on unemployment for the duration of the pandemic, between the CARES Act and this bill, you're getting something close to $30,000 from the government. Less taxes, of course, including the tax on your time, as we went over yesterday. But that universe of people, while in need, is about 2 to 3% of the total workforce. By contrast, something like 80% of the public, everyone making $100,000 or less, is getting the check. From a messaging standpoint, a quote, what's in it for me, unquote, that's going to take precedence. Trump does know how to market. Moreover, you can see the two payments from CARES in this bill as a leveler of decades of soaring inequality, and really the least you can do for a population that has had the rules of capitalism rigged against them. Even if they weren't means tested, giving everyone thousands of dollars means more to those at the lower end. You bet. To my family, it means $4,000. That's big, 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 big. The politics then argue for higher payments. They do. So why weren't the politicians playing politics before this? Mitch McConnell, he didn't care about the politics, the mass politics. He only cared about the donor politics, and the donors didn't want regular people to get higher payments. So Mitch wasn't for them. That's what it was about from the beginning. That's what it was about. It was about, again, the lack of democracy, the fact that the oligarchs control. That's what it was about. It was Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans who kept them artificially low. Why? Again, the donors. Now here comes Trump asking for them to be tripled. It's amazing he waited until after losing the election to flash the old-time populism and wedge both parties. That's because, at the bottom, he's an idiot. But here we are. As I said before, he could easily have won re-election. All he had to do is, when the pandemic hit, give everybody Medicare for all. Push for that. Join the progressives for that. Say, look, everybody's got to be covered for free. And then give everybody the $2,000 a month that was in the Automatic Booster Community Act. And use the $1 trillion coins to do it. He could have done that. Trump could have done that. He would have been elected president. I mean, Biden wouldn't have had a ghost of a chance against that, right? We wouldn't be seeing Biden coming into the White House now. It's amazing that he waited until after losing the election to flash the old-time populism and wedge both parties, but here we are. And then came the moment where Mitch McConnell's head blew up like in Scanners. Did you ever see that film, Scanners? Heads blow up. Yeah. As soon as Trump posted that video, I suggested that the House pass a one-page bill, increasing the checks from $600 to $2,000. Much to my delight in seeing that political instincts in the Democratic Party aren't totally dead. About 10 minutes later, Nancy Pelosi suggested the same thing, saying she would offer unanimous consent to amend the bill. Representatives Rashida Tlaib And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez even wrote the amendment. I gave it a name. The $2,000 does offer long-lasting available relief for $2,000 Act. Eventually, Chuck Schumer got on board as well. Joe Biden hasn't said anything, but he was on the record for seeking more money when he became president, so the Democratic leadership beat him to it and called Trump's bluff. Now, word on unanimous consent. It would be better to just pass a bill in the House and demand its take-up in the Senate. Unanimous consent needs to be, well, unanimous. One Republican House member can derail it. If you move a bill, every House Republican has to go on record of whether they stand with Trump for spending $380 billion in a direct transfer to low and middle income people. Every one of those that doesn't get a campaign ad in 2022 about how, quote, you needed that extra money and Congressman X voted to not give it to you. So yes, hashtag force the vote. Hi, Jimmy. This puts McConnell in a terrible spot. There's an election in Georgia in 2 weeks that will determine his Senate majority. The only reason McConnell passed this bill is to save Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue's careers and preserve his control of the Senate. He put an artificial $900 billion cap on it, which Donald Trump and Democrats are now united in regarding as puny. If McConnell resists the change, he's all alone in denying the money to the American people. These checks poll extremely well, and both Democrats in Georgia are already running on the $2,000 level. If McConnell resists, losing the Senate is a much likelier scenario. If he doesn't, people get $2,000. There are so many amazing subplots here. Trump can't stand McConnell for abandoning his overthrow the election gambit, so he sticks in the final knife. The threat, by the way, is real. There are only 10 days left in this Congress, and Trump doesn't have the bill yet, which is being, quote, enrolled, unquote, essentially double-checked for errors. He could pocket veto the bill and just not sign it, and in 10 days the clock would run out and there would be no bill for anyone. The new Congress would have to start all over. This would be a disastrous scenario. Unemployment programs would expire. The eviction moratorium would lift, and more. Already this snafu is delaying the flow of relief, and the only man holding it up is Mitch McConnell. This upends the entire shift of the multiracial working class away from the Democratic Party and refocuses the spotlight brightly on McConnell. Trump handed the Democrats a total gift here, and if they play it right, the payoff for people literally will be incredible. That was a brilliantly written post, folks. I hope you agree. I mean, that was bam, bam again, and bam again after that. That was really great. So there are a number of other things that appeared that are worth taking a look at. Just yesterday, there was a post by Uncommon Dreams by Kenny Stansel, I think. Was it Kenny Stansel? Yeah, Kenny Stansel, staff writer, reflecting on the roughly $900 billion reflecting on the $900 billion coronavirus relief package that he called pathetic, quote unquote, for its obscene giveaways to the wealthy and meager assistance for the working class, Senator Bernie Sanders on Tuesday, yesterday, warned of devastating consequences for the United States if Democrats continually capitulating to the GOP's efforts to impose austerity in the midst of an ongoing public health emergency and massive economic crisis. The Democratic Socialists from Vermont acknowledged in an email to supporters that the COVID-19 relief bill provides a non-retroactive $300 per week federal boost to unemployment insurance and extends those benefits through March. The legislation also allocates funding for schools, childcare, broadband, food and housing aid, vaccine distribution, and thanks to the efforts of progressive lawmakers and organizations, includes $600 direct payment to many Americans. Right. Sanders said, given the enormous economic desperation working families are now experiencing, there's nowhere near enough as to what is needed. Of course, he said that. And then he summarized the pandemic-related efforts by the legislature since May. House passed $3.4 trillion HEROES Act. 2 months later, the House passed another version of that bill for $2.2 trillion. That same month, Mitch proposed $1.1 trillion piece of legislation that included a $1,200 direct payment for every working-class American. Months later, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, negotiating on behalf of President Trump, also proposed a COVID relief plan with Speaker Pelosi for $1.8 trillion that also included a $1,200 direct payment, and yet, after months of bipartisan negotiations by the so-called Gang of Eight, the middle, we ended up, the middle of both parties, we ended up with a bill of just $908 billion that includes $560 billion in unused money from the previously passed CARES Act, the worst deal that was previously proposed by Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump. So he went from $3.4 trillion to $2.2 trillion to $1.8 trillion from Trump and $1.1 trillion from Mitch McConnell to just $348 billion new money, roughly 10% of what Democrats thought was originally needed and half of what Trump and McConnell offered in direct payments. This is not good negotiating, the senator said. This is a collapse. Thanks, Nancy Pelosi. It's a collapse. Once Biden's victory in the presidential election, we know why it collapsed, by the way, because the original $2.2 trillion CARES Act, that negotiation was blown completely by Nancy Pelosi when she gave the money cannon to the damned large corps and made them safe. And of course, that's all McConnell wanted. So she gave everything McConnell wanted to him in the first round, and she had no basis for legislating. That's why we need #replace Pelosi, because she's gone. She lost it. She's grown corrupt, but also lazy and ineffectual. Anyway, once Biden's victory in the presidential election became clear, Sanders added, quote, we started to hear a lot of talk from my Senate colleagues in the Republican Party about their old friend, the deficit, unquote. Direct payments of $1,200 to every working class American and $500 for their children, fiscal aid for state and local governments, and stronger unemployment benefits all became things we couldn't afford because of the deficit, unquote. The irony, Bernie pointed out, is it's the same Republican Party so concerned about the deficit that it does things like pass a $1.9 trillion tax cut benefiting the wealthiest in the U.S. at the expense of the vast majority, spent trillions on war over the past 2 decades, approved last week a $740 billion Pentagon budget, the largest bill of its kind in the history of the country, one that spends more money on defense than the next 10 nations combined, lavish the climate-destroying fossil fuel industry with billions in subsidies, and provide billions in corporate welfare to profitable companies paying workers starvation wages that must be supplemented by taxpayer-supported programs. Of course, Bernie, you know taxpayers don't support any programs, not at the federal level. Quote, and during any of these debates, do you recall any of my Republican colleagues asking how these proposals were going to be paid for? I don't, says Bernie. So forgive me for thinking that sudden display of concern for the deficit seems a bit insincere. More to the point, it's total hypocrisy. And Warren Gunnels, the man with the receipts, Bernie's man with the receipts, tweeted, yes, we should be providing every working class American with $2,000 a month during the pandemic, just like they did in Canada, When you vote for over $1 trillion in tax breaks for the top 1% in large corporations, please spare us the lecture on the deficit. Enough is enough. Then Rand Paul tweeted, if free money were the answer, if money really grew on trees, why not give more free money? Why not give it out all the time? Why stop at $600 a person? Why not $1,000? Why not $2,000? Why not, Rand? Why not, Rand? I mean, you're sitting there, a rich man. You don't need it. I don't know why it ought to go to you. The tax man should take it back from you immediately. But people like me and most people need it. They need it. They need that free money. It helps to solve their problems. Might not have anything to do with your problems. And Bernie tweeted, Republicans and some conservative Dems thought their $1,200 survival check for the working class was too costly. But they had no problem giving the bloated Pentagon $740 billion for weapons and war. By the way, a lot of that is for Saudis to bomb the hell out of people. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to fundamentally rethink our national priorities. Highlighting the pervasiveness of unemployment, poverty, hunger, and housing insecurity, Bernie noted, quote, there's more economic desperation in our country today than at any point since the Great Depression, he said, of course. And he went on and, his rap on this. But here he said something important. If we allow Republicans to set the parameters of the debate going forward, like they did in this current COVID relief bill, the next 2 to 4 years are going to be a disaster. And that point is very, very important, because that's what Pelosi did. She let Mitch write the original CARE Act. And then after she tried to write 2 bills herself, and she couldn't get them through, she let these problem-solving caucus people from both parties, she let them write a relief bill. The people in the middle from both parties who don't do anything real for the people and who weren't doing much that was real for the people here too, they were putting a Band-Aid on it. On Twitter today, I made some remarks about the Problem-Solving Caucus, and I characterized them as hashtag the kick the can down the roaders, unquote, on hashtag, who never solve any problems. All they do is kick the can down the road, and that's what they were doing here. Give the people a little bit in order to get them through the beginning of the year, kick the can down the road to Biden, when we'll have the same problem, which is getting Mitch McConnell to go along with real relief. But why do you kick the can down the road? You kick the can down the road so Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue can maybe win in Georgia. That's what it's about. That's why Mitch got behind it. Echoing an argument made by the Daily Poster's David Sirota about how Biden's zealous commitment to austerity ideology facilitated the watering down of coronavirus relief. Sanders called the legislation, quote, a very dangerous precedent, unquote, that must be opposed. Our concern at this moment, the senator said, is that no matter what happens in Georgia next month and which party controls the Senate, we cannot allow this type of inadequate negotiation again on major legislation. That's right. The Speaker of the House has to set the framework for the legislation, and it cannot be an ineffectual speaker like Nancy Pelosi, who betrays her party, who betrays her people, and who betrays most of the working people in the United States of America. Quote, at this unprecedented moment in American history, Bernie said, with a growing gap between the very rich and everyone else, and when many millions of Americans are suffering, Democrats in Congress must stand up for the working families of the country. emphasizing a need for, quote, an aggressive agenda that speaks to the needs of the working class in this country, income and wealth inequality, healthcare, climate change, education, racial justice, immigration reform, and so many other vitally important issues, Bernie said. No more caving in, quote, unquote. We've all got to echo that. No more caving in. No caving in at all. No more of it. And we had some more activity after Trump kicked off stuff. First, we had this is a no-brainer. House Democrats announce effort to pass $2,000 payments as Trump demands bigger checks. House Democrats are planning to request a unanimous consent this week to approve sending one-time $2,000 direct payments to most Americans after President Donald Trump late Tuesday attacked the recently passed $900 billion coronavirus relief bill as a disgrace and suggested he might not sign the legislation if it isn't amended to include bigger checks. And as Dave Dayen said, he doesn't have to sign it. He can pocket veto it. He can let it sit on his desk for the 10 days and just expire. He can do that. Almost immediately after Trump's remarks made in a video posted to Twitter on Tuesday night, Democratic lawmakers and Bernie Sanders embraced the president's call for $2,000 payments. Oh, and by the way, Trump followed that up by formally vetoing the NDAA Act, the National Defense Authorization Act, the one that gave the $740 billion to the military. He vetoed that because he wasn't happy with certain provisions in that bill. He's especially upset about the fact that the names of various forts will be changed because of their lineage to Confederate soldiers or such things. He doesn't want to change the names. He's ready to veto, not just ready, he's vetoing the whole defense bill because that's in there. So Elizabeth Warren's going to have to take a favorite part of the defense bill out of the defense bill in order to get it through, evidently. Otherwise, maybe Trump's going to veto it again. Almost immediately after Trump's remarks, made in a video posted to Twitter on Tuesday night, Democratic lawmakers and Bernie Sanders embraced the president's call for $2,000 payments, with many noting they've been demanding such relief for months. In May, Sanders teamed up with Senators Kamala Harris and Ed Markey, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, and Ed Markey, Democratic Massachusetts, to propose $2,000 monthly payments to most Americans for the duration of the coronavirus crisis. So, Senator Kamala Harris, don't you talk to Vice President Kamala Harris anymore? And Vice President-elect Kamala Harris anymore? And doesn't she talk to President-elect Joe Biden anymore? Why isn't he out there calling for $2,000 monthly payments to most Americans for the duration of the coronavirus crisis? Or was that Senator Kamala Harris only signing on to that bill for show, like so much else that she does, for show? Last week, as Common Dreams reported, members of the CPC demanded direct payments of at least $2,000 as part of the new relief package. By the way, what happened to the Automatic Boost for Communities Act? $2,000 per person, $1,000 for each child for as long as the pandemic lasts, and then $1,000 a month for each person and $500 for each child for a year after until the economy recovers. What happened to that bill? Which, by the way, was funded by trillion-dollar coins. How about the CPC getting in back of that bill written by two of their own, or at least introduced by two of their own, specifically Rashida and Pramila Jayapal, the chairperson of the CPC? Why isn't that being pushed? Anyway, which was paired with government funding legislation that the president must sign to avert a shutdown on December 29th. Trump had reportedly considered pushing for $2,000 checks during negotiations over the new package, which also includes an extension of soon-to-expire unemployment benefits before backing off at the last minute. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi tweeted in the wake of Trump's video Tuesday that, quote, Democrats are ready to bring this to the floor this week by unanimous consent, unquote. One aide told CNN that Democrats are planning the unanimous consent vote for Thursday. Christmas Eve. Republicans refused to say what amount the president wanted for direct checks. At last, the president has agreed to $2,000, said Pelosi. Let's do it, unquote. 2 hours after Trump posted the video, which reportedly stunned many of his advisors. He should have stunned them. They gave him very bad advice all along. And Rashida and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweeted out an amendment that would replace the $600 payments currently in the relief legislation with one-time $2,000 payments to most Americans. Yeah, simple amendment, requires very little, just basically inking out the 600 and putting in 2,000. That's it. Glad to see the president is willing to support our legislation, said Ocasio-Cortez. We can pass $2,000 checks this week if the Senate agrees to stand down. Ilhan Omar, Anna Presley, and other CPC members backed the amendment. People's lives are at stake, said Presley. Survival checks now. Phil Mattingly said House Dems will attempt to pass $2,000 direct payments as requested by President Trump. And the CPC, by the way, said this is a no-brainer. Let's do it. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer quickly threw his support behind the amendment offered by Tlaib and Ocasio-Cortez, tweeting, let's not get bogged down with ideological offsets and unrelated items and just do this. The American people deserve it. I'm in. What do you say, Mitch? Passing the 2000 payments amendment by unanimous consent will be highly difficult, given that just one member can object and block the effort, as Ron Johnson did twice when Sanders and Josh Hawley tried to pass $1,200 checks last week. If the unanimous consent request fails, and it most likely will, progressive observers urge Pelosi to bring House members back for a full vote on the payments. Doing it by unanimous consent means any one member can block it, tweeted Adam Jentelson, Public Affairs Director at Democracy Forward. The House should actually bring a clean 2K checks bill to the floor, pass it, and send it to the Senate. Do it with the intent of people getting more aid, not just as a stunt. Yep. In the Republican-controlled Senate, Schumer, quote, Schumer can start demanding unanimous consent to pass the $2,000 check legislation every day the body is in session, a process that would have the added benefit of putting the heat on Georgia incumbent Republicans Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue to pick which side they are on. Noted the Daily Poster's David Sirota, Andrew Perez, and Walker Bragman. Appearing on CNN following Trump's demand Tuesday night, John Ossoff, Perdue's Democratic opponent, said Trump is correct to demand $2,000 checks. President Trump is ever erratic and all over the place, but on this point tonight, he's right. $600 is a joke. They should send $2,000 checks to the American people right now because people are hurting. Noting that Perdue, quote, opposed even the first round of $1,200 checks under the CARES Act. Ossoff added that Congress, quote, should pass $2,000 checks. They should have done it 2 months ago. 2 months ago. They should absolutely have done it 2 months ago. And next, we have the voice of, on December 23rd, the voice of Mike Pence. Julia Conley, Common Dreams, December 23rd, quote, yes, exactly, unquote. Say progressives after Pence warns Democrats will, quote, make rich poorer and poor more comfortable. Yes, yes. The People for Bernie on Tuesday advised Democratic Party take a page from an unlikely source, right-wing Vice President Mike Pence, after Pence told a rowdy crowd in Florida that progressives and Democrats want to make rich people poorer and poor people more comfortable. Good message, tweeted the group. Good message. Vice President Mike Pence. Democrats want to make rich people poorer and poor people more comfortable. Is this a criticism? Is this a criticism? Suggesting that a progressive approach to the economy will harm the country, despite the fact that other wealthy nations already invest heavily in making low and middle income people more comfortable by taxing corporations' very high earners. Pence touted the Republicans' aim to cut taxes and roll back the regulations. So let me get this straight. The fanatical Christian fundamentalist in the House who can't even be alone with a woman because his wife objects to it. He refuses to accept the teachings of Jesus, who would never have said, cut taxes and roll back the regulations. He would never have said that. He would never have said, as Pence implies, he would never have said it's wrong to want to make rich people poorer and poor people more comfortable. Jesus would never have said that was wrong, but his follower, his fanatical follower, Mike Pence, says that. What kind of hypocrisy is that? I've been watching this hypocritical guy say things like that since he came into the Congress. I even did a blog about it once. I said something about Mike Pence, freeze every thought, never think a new thought. He can't put two thoughts together. What he hears on Sundays and what he says during the week. Total hypocrite. I wanted to bring that hypocrisy to your attention at the risk of offending some people. And Anand, the Juridaridis says, they want to make rich people poor and poor people more comfortable, Mike Pence says. Yes, exactly. Ilhan, what's wrong with making poor people more comfortable? She should have tweeted, well, sorry, Ilhan, maybe this is the wrong thing to say for you specifically. But somebody should have tweeted across at this guy. Anyway, here we are. 54 million Americans are going hungry right now, and Mike Pence is scandalized by the very concept of making more people more comfortable. Yes, he's always scandalized by that. He's always trying to cut SNAP. Has Mike Pence ever supported a SNAP bill? A food assistance bill for hungry people? Has he ever supported increasing the SNAP allowance? I doubt it. He's always been worried about the deficit, about the debt, the national debt. In his whole life, he worried about that until he joined the Trump administration. And he knew he couldn't worry about that anymore. And then to go back to the major theme of tonight, or one of the major themes of tonight anyway. We have this little gem by Jake Johnson, Common Dreams, December 23rd, 2020. Move Mitch. Get out of the way. McConnell and McCarthy under fire for obstructing $2,000 relief checks. Quote, if you don't see that in your bank account, you have Mitch McConnell to thank, unquote. There he is, Christmas Mitch himself, with President Donald Trump and the two top Democrats in Congress now behind the push for $2,000 direct payments. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy on Wednesday faced growing pressure from lawmakers and activists who characterized the Republicans as the two chief obstacles remaining in the way of significantly larger relief checks. Quote, hey, Senator McConnell, the ball's in your court, unquote, tweeted Bernie, a leader in the progressive push for larger direct payments that began months ago. Quote, Schumer, Pelosi, and Trump all want us to pass a $2,000 direct payment for working-class Americans who are facing more economic desperation than at any time since the Great Depression. Leader McConnell, let the Senate vote. Just 24 hours after the House and Senate approved a roughly $900 billion relief package that would extend soon-to-expire unemployment benefits and send $600 payments to many Americans, Trump on Tuesday released a video address in which he slammed the legislation as a disgrace. Trump, why didn't you do it before the election, even after the election? Why didn't you do it when these problem solver idiots started meeting and crafting that loser bill that somehow cowed everybody? Thinking, oh, this is all we're going to get. We can't possibly get any more because Mitch won't do it. Mitch won't do it. So what is this all about anyway? Bo, the fifth columnist, suggested, and I agree with him, it's about a tug of war between Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump for control of the Republican Party in the coming days and years. Trump wanted to destroy Mitch's hold on the Republican Party in the House. And by the way, every good American should want to destroy Mitch McConnell's hold on the House because Mitch has been in the way of so many good things for so many years, or has been someone who's enabled and abetted the faux fiscal responsibility austerity mongers on the Democratic side because he's always been worse than they. So they look good by comparison. So if Trump could destroy Mitch's career in this way, that would be a wonderful thing for us too. A wonderful thing for us too. It would be the best thing that Trump had ever done in his presidency for America. Trump on Tuesday night released a video address in which he slammed the legislation as a disgrace and suggested he might not sign it. And he might not. After all, he vetoed the NDAA. He probably vetoed that just to show that he was serious, that he'll veto anything right now. So tell me, why didn't he veto Amy Coney Barrett? Done himself some good. Just withdraw her nomination until Mitch passed the big bill Pelosi wanted. If Trump refuses to sign the legislation, which was paired with a sprawling omnibus spending package, the government was shut down on December 29th, and 14 million people could lose unemployment benefits. Many Democratic lawmakers and the party's leadership Boy, it's a clarifying moment, folks. And the party's leadership, where did I lose this? Sorry, I lost my place here. Yes, quickly seized upon Trump's demand for larger relief checks. And, oh, God. Vowing to request unanimous consent this week to boost the direct payments and slamming their Republican counterparts for persistently opposing robust relief for the increasingly desperate U.S. public. And Representatives Rashida Tlaib, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, late Tuesday unveiled a one-page amendment that would hike the payments from $600 to $2,000. If Trump refuses to, sorry, I got scroll bars doing tricks here. I'm 100% on board with $2,000 survival checks for struggling families, Senator Elizabeth Warren tweeted on Wednesday. That's another country heard from. Quote, anyway, having scroll bar problems. Anyway, Barbara Lee added that Democrats are ready to pass $2,000 survival payments. Warren said House and Senate Democrats are united on this. What do you say, Senate Majority Leader McConnell? Does your caucus have the heart to give the American people? And I can't see that other line. I don't know why. Barbara Lee added, Democrats are, quote, ready to pass $2,000 survival payments. Quote, Senate Majority Leader, are you, unquote, Lee asked. In a Dear Colleague letter on Wednesday, Pelosi wrote that moving ahead with the unanimous consent request requires the agreement of Kevin McCarthy. If the president truly wants to join us in $2,000 payments, he should call upon Leader McCarthy to agree to our unanimous consent request. We are scheduled to go in for a pro forma session tomorrow at 9 a.m. We're awaiting word from Leader Hoyer as to whether Leader McCarthy will agree to or reject our unanimous consent request. Neither McCarthy nor McConnell have commented publicly on Trump's demand for $2,000 checks. Even if McCarthy agrees to the Democrats' request, it is highly unlikely it will ultimately be granted, given that any single lawmaker can block the effort. Outside progressives are urging Pelosi to call members of the House back to Washington, D.C. for a floor vote on the $2,000 payments if the unanimous consent request fails. Should the measure clear the House, it would face an uphill battle in the Republican-controlled Senate. And that's a reality that further highlights the stakes of the Senate runoffs in Georgia. As Common Dreams reported Wednesday, Democratic candidates John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock have both endorsed $2,000 checks. If you don't see that in your bank accounts, tweeted Natalie Montalongo, Executive Director of People First Future, you have Mitch McConnell to thank. Anna Pressley tweeted, move, Mitch, get out of the way. Jeremy Funk, spokesperson for watchdog group Accountable.us, said in a statement Wednesday that Senator McConnell and his fellow Senate obstructionists found plenty of money for tax goodies for corporations and the richest among us in the latest stimulus bill. Among the giveaways reported is a provision that tax experts are describing as a, quote, $200 billion giveaway to the rich And as you heard from Dave Dayen, increasing the checks to $2,000 would only cost $280 billion. They had no trouble giving half of that away to the rich, did they, already in that same bill? Quote, the McConnell Senate now has no excuse for refusing 2,000 checks to workers making incredible sacrifices during the holiday season amid a pandemic that President Trump and his allies bungled from the beginning. Quote, the rich and powerful are already poised to have a very merry holiday season thanks to McConnell's stimulus handouts. The least he can do is support a less than insulting bit of additional help for the tens of millions out of work in the Trump recession. They're the ones who really need a Christmas bonus. And they are. We are. We, all of us are. We really deserve a Christmas bonus, and we need to have a Christmas bonus. Okay, now the Replace Pelosi, hashtag Replace Pelosi, is a Twitter campaign that I am working on with a number of people, principally Lana Dell and but also Ramona Masacci. And we've been tweeting up Storm now for days, getting increasing support. This is really in opposition to Jimmy Dore's campaign. Now, this is not about Jimmy Dore, as far as we see it. We are for a floor vote on Medicare for All too. But what we're pointing out is if the squad should lose and they don't get the Medicare for All vote, and Pelosi wins anyway, the squad goes to congressional Siberia. If the squad wins and they get the Medicare for All floor vote, they probably still get sent to congressional Siberia but by Pelosi, because she's still the speaker and she still has control. She's going to send them to Siberia anyway. What happens then? They lose pull in the House, even less influence than they have now. Their constituents don't get the small benefits they're getting now. They have less to claim as successes when they run next time against well-funded establishment people who oppose them. And maybe one or more of the 8 gets defeated the second time because of Pelosi's sending them to congressional Siberia. So that's the penalty. It might be the penalty even if they get a Medicare for All floor vote. But what's the alternative? If we replace Pelosi, hashtag replace Pelosi, that's the campaign hashtag. If they use their 8 votes to block Pelosi and stand firm, there's no way she can get to a majority of the votes cast for the speakership, which is what she needs. The 8 progressives have to vote for other people. They don't have to be in the House. They don't have to be serious candidates for the speakership. They could vote for Michael Moore. They could vote for Noam Chomsky. They could vote for Cornel West. They could vote for Jimmy Dore. They could vote. One person could vote for one of those people. Another person could vote for 2 of those people. Third person could vote for another one of those people. They could just vote for whoever they want to outside of the House. It would be a vote cast, and Pelosi will be denied a majority. After 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 ballots, she would quit. It would be proven she cannot get to a majority. So then what happens? then other people have to come forward. Pelosi would have to give them a by your leave to come forward, even people who had been close to her over a period of years. Nobody less friendly to the progressives than Nancy Pelosi, less friendly to Medicare for all, would be allowed in by the squad. They could continue to block any such candidate that was put forward. Only a candidate that had the support of the squad and other progressives could win. Steny Hoyer couldn't win. Hakeem Jeffries couldn't win. Jim Clyburn couldn't win. None of them could win. So what would happen? What would happen is that some people who are a little more kindly to the squad would begin to negotiate with them. Then the squad could demand a price. The price could include a Medicare for all floor vote, Green New Deal floor votes. I say multiple votes because the Green New Deal is a resolution and it has to be implemented with specific bills. So you might be looking at 10 different bills to pass a Green New Deal. There would have to be agreements they get floor votes on all those bills, including the job guarantee bill, floor votes on student debt elimination, floor votes on housing bills, floor votes on infrastructure bills. There could be a whole list of floor votes. They could also demand changes to the rules, making floor votes far easier to get. For example, some rule that says if you get 10% of the caucus, of the Democratic caucus, to sign on to a vote with a co-sponsorship, make co-sponsorships mean something, then you get a floor vote on that bill. There could be a rule like that passed in the House right now to facilitate getting more floor votes. One other price could be getting rid of pay-go, eliminating the pay-go rule. Bury it so it's never heard from again. Drive a stake through its heart. As Forbes used to say, drive a stake through its heart. So, yeah, pay-go's a vampire. You should drive a stake through its heart. So, they could also demand good committee assignments in return for their support. And by the way, the support of the whole Progressive Caucus. Now, how large is that? We don't really know. Okay, the numbers are 101 members. One of those is in the Senate. He's Bernie Sanders. So there are 100 people in the caucus in the House. But a lot of those people are just insincere. They call themselves progressives, but they're not. Hakeem Jeffries is in the goddamn Progressive Caucus. So, the caucus has made moves under the leadership of Jayapal Powell to tighten up the caucus. There are rules now to tighten it up. They're probably going to reduce the membership to 40 or 50 members. But those are the members who will be the real progressives. Any speaker will have to get the support of that whole block and more. So the new speaker is going to be someone in the middle of the Democratic caucus. But specifically, it will have to be someone much more friendly to the squad and the initiatives of the squad. So that is the Replace Pelosi campaign that we're getting going there. And we're having really quite a bit of success. We even got Twitter support from Dylan Ratigan a couple of days ago. We've got people with large followings in back of us right now. We need more. We need to put more heat on the squad. Because right now, Jimmy Dore is eclipsing us with his campaign. And his campaign is not one that is going to succeed in convincing the squad. Why? Well, just consider. Compare it to ours, and you'll understand. If the squad goes out on a limb and tries to hold firm and block Pelosi, if they don't succeed, they get thrown into congressional Siberia. So the penalty is the same as it would be for Jimmy's initiative. But the rewards are much greater, as I've just outlined for you. The rewards are far greater. They get much, much more. Whenever people contemplate taking a decision, if they're smart people, as the squad is, they always have to calculate, is this move worth the risk? If you look at what Jimmy wants, a floor vote on Medicare for all by itself is not worth the risk. But floor votes on the whole progressive program, floor votes more or less whenever you want a floor vote, if you get even 10% of the caucus, throwing out the pay-go rule, getting good committee positions, getting all that stuff, that's worth the risk. That's why we think we have a chance to persuade the squad to take this action. Now, today, an objection came up on Twitter from somebody who was being, fairly manipulative. Said, well, there's a moderate Republican who's now an independent who might vote with Pelosi, and she's only 4 votes away from having a majority of votes cast. So then she'd be only 3 votes away. And there are others who might also defect from Kevin McCarthy if they thought that he didn't have a chance to win. So I don't think people would do that, because those Republicans are really, really stubborn, and because Pelosi is probably going to be ahead by McCarthy only by 1 vote, 214, 213. And they'd be thinking, well, what if the progressives make a mistake? But that's not really the important point here. The important point here is, as soon as Pelosi starts getting support from the Republicans, and they would have the credit for putting her over the top, what happens? Then all of a sudden, Ro Khanna lines up with the squad. Pramila Jayapal lines up with the squad. Raul Grijalva lines up with the squad. Mark Pocan lines up with the squad. More and more and more of the progressive caucus lines up with the squad. The more Republicans that cross over, the more progressives line up with the squad to block Nancy Pelosi. So that's it. I mean, that's it, guys. That's what would happen. So this gentleman was not correct about what would happen. That would be a bad move for the Republicans, because it would free up the progressive caucus to go solidly behind the squad. And by the way, when Pelosi made her agreement with the caucus in 2018, she said that she wanted to stand for one more term beyond that, which is now. But she said that in order to take the speakership, then I would have to get at least 2/3 of the vote of the caucus. 2/3 of the vote of the caucus, with 222 members of the caucus. 2/3 of the vote of the caucus is going to be something like 143 members. So I don't know if the whole progressive caucus would line up with the squad, but if most of them do, and if some of the right-wingers who don't like Pelosi at all also do, there's no way Pelosi could get 1/3 of the caucus even then. So she shouldn't want to accept any so-called moderate support from the Republicans. She should avoid that like the plague, because that's going to free up other Democrats to split the party. And she needs to have the party stick together to back her. That's why she's trying to crunch the squad so heavily. So that's what would happen. Anyway, we're working hard to get this done. Perhaps you're interested in this. Perhaps you're interested in joining us on Twitter. Look for the hashtag Replace Pelosi, capital R, capital P. That's where we are on Twitter. That's where the campaign is. We have another hashtag too. It's called Empower the Squad. Hashtag Empower the Squad. But the main hashtag is hashtag Replace Pelosi. So that's it. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., I'm going to be doing a Zoom meeting. It'll be kind of an organizational meeting to see how many people are interested in getting really actively organized in this, so that we can really push something to get to the kinds of levels that Jimmy Dore has in his campaign, so the squad notices what we are saying. I think it's very important. It's the first time I've run a Zoom meeting. I don't know how it's going to go. I suspect there are going to be some rough spots. But if you're interested in this campaign, you might want to go to the meeting, the Zoom meeting. We are going to post an announcement, and the information you need to get into the Zoom meeting will be there. I understand that the way it's done is you just click on one thing and you get in there. So you can try and see, if you can get in. One can get in from iPads, and one can get in from phones, either Androids, or iPhones, and one can get in from computers, as well. There are different versions of the app, for each one. But I think when you hit a link, what will happen is, if you don't have the Zoom app on your computer or your iPhone, your iPad, whatever, then you'll launch the download, in order to get it. And I believe the Zoom app is free for people who are basically coming to streams. And you don't have to download the app even. Supposedly, if you just hit on the link, it will take you into Zoom. As you can tell, I don't know much about it. I've been learning about it for the last 3 days. So, Nancy Gosling Blackmore says, you were spot on tonight. Thank you. Carmen Munoz says, so we'll celebrate in the spring. I hope we can celebrate in the spring. It might not be till the late spring, however. But let us see. I'm going to hit your comments now. And we got started, a bit late. So actually, we didn't do too bad on time tonight. And Deborah says, history of U.S. wars. I think that's where I left it. Kay says, shared. Carmen says, lyrics fit these times. Kay says, Oliver Stone is good. Barbara says, he may have won. Stimulus, people are paying attention. Kay says, hi, Steve. Steve Gonzo said, baby food is the most shoplifted item in the United States. Jeffrey Denton says, panda eyes are a condition brought about by victims of brought about by molestation victims. Hello. Barbara says, the Democrats didn't fight either. Most of them did not fight either. No, they just kind of accepted it, that the only way they would get something. But it appeared as though Trump, to be fair to them, it appeared as though Trump was going along with Mitch, that he wasn't going to make any noise, and Mitch had control, and the Democrats were blaming the Republicans for no more money coming in. They just weren't attracting any attention. But Trump, with his tweets, basically lit people up. Kay says, oligarchs are killing us all. And Cora Emanuel says, hey, Cora, how you doing? This stimulus deal was all political theater. Trump should have minted the platinum coin and given us Medicare for all. And given us also $2,000 a month in checks and $1,000 per child, all funded by platinum coins. Trump should have minted the $100 trillion coin, actually, and taken care of deficits and paid off the debt, so it would no longer be an issue. Carmen says, oh, I'm sorry. No, Carmen is me too. This is the first time I've heard that term myself. And Steve Gonzo says, the rise of COVID nasal swab has brought the Nusi experience of having an entirely new body part penetrated and the unexpected pleasures. Seems to be a lot of sick FKS. Wow. Barbara says, I'm so afraid of Joe Biden, honestly, more so than Trump. He terrifies me. No, Trump's, look at all the terrible things Trump has done since he's come to the presidency. I mean, it's really incredible. Small, evil things to people. The killing spree for those on death row now, so he can kill as many as possible before Biden comes in, because he knows Biden isn't going to kill him. So he's going to kill him. He did something today to millions of people, throwing them off of some benefit, or other. Every single day you read a news article of some evil thing that Trump has done just for the evil pleasure of it. He's selling $750 billion worth of bombs to Saudi so they can use it on the Yemenites or the Yemenis. I'm not sure which is correct. In biblical times, they probably would have been known as the Yemenites. Anyway, Jeff Denton says, it could not be any more clear for evident that citizens united everything, and everything but the citizens. Right. Steve Gonzo, what pleasure. And Greg Mallet said, sorry, I'm late. I was busy doing something. Steve Gonzo said, the backroom band is back together. And Carmen says, looking at the stars. Greg says, no stars around here, just a bunch of clouds. Kay says, hi, Greg Mallard. And Cora says, Gregory Mallard. Hi, comrade. Gregory Mallard says, I was on a video call with my other half. Steve Gonzo says, rain here. Carmen says, Gregory Mallett, is it cold there? I was so hoping we'd get a cold snap by Christmas down here in Florida so I can wear a turtleneck hoodie that I'm getting from someone. Kay says, I'm sick to death of this Ohio weather, Steve. And Jeff Detton says, the middle, a person who has a world leader murdered in broad daylight because he gives his citizens free electricity, free college, and free health care, is somehow a centrist. We saw, he died. Yep, that's them in the middle, killing people all the time, killing them with their kindness about fiscal responsibility, so we won't leave all this big debt for our grandchildren. Of course, our grandchildren will not owe the debt. Their government will own the debt. And the government can mint platinum coins. And the government can also do overt congressional financing. As much of it as it wants. It's not even printing the money. It's ordering the Federal Reserve to mark up the accounts. Might snow, little X-Max. Yay, laugh out loud. Greg says, supposed to be a big cold snap starting tomorrow down here tomorrow night. Going to be another cold front moving into the area. I wonder if it's moving here into D.C. also. Carmen says, this time they're giving the defense industries all the money. Of course, as countries with strong social policies are faring far better than capitalist countries like the U.S. during the pandemic. Jeff says, after all, the people who are ultimately on the hook for it should be allowed to say where it goes to, wouldn't you think? Carmen says, Greg Mallett, awesome. That means it'll come this way. Barbara Wernick says, get Pelosi out. Steve Gonzo says, they're quick to override the veto for defense. Carmen Muniz says, Tokyo Pelosi, traitor of we the people, quote unquote. Carmen Muniz, people down there are supposed to watch for iguanas falling out of trees due to a cold snap. And Rahul Majumdar says, long live Jimmy Dore. Indeed, long live Jimmy Dore. I wish Jimmy nothing but the best. And Steve says, did you watch today's stream with Jordan Chariton? No, I didn't have time. I was busy tweeting on Twitter and learning Zoom. I'm trying to get the opportunity to live stream to Facebook and YouTube the Zoom sessions. And I haven't quite figured out how to do it yet. Somebody said on a Zoom video that he could do it through StreamYard. But then he tried to demonstrate how he was doing it through StreamYard, and all he demonstrated was that StreamYard could do it. He didn't quite demonstrate how Zoom could hook up. Now I could see that maybe using StreamYard, you could share the screen with a Zoom stream coming in. Share the screen in a StreamYard stream with a Zoom stream that was also on your computer. I saw that, but I thought of that, but I'm not clear on how to do it yet. Anyway, Rahul Majumdar said, my questions, New York Times opinion section yesterday. Since when is a $600 check good enough? I don't know. Maybe a $600 check was good enough back in 1945. Barbara Wernick said, these aren't your parents' Democrats. They are indeed right-wing Republicans. I know. They're not my parents' Democrats. They're not my Democrats either. Carmen says, yes, they really do. People eat them. You'll see iguana skeletons all over the place in about a month after they fall out and die, but most of them survive. Rahul Majumdar says, unfortunately, no. Carmen, yes, I posted a video about that earlier on my page, and Rahul says, Trump out-lefting the corporate Democrats again, out-lefting even Bernie Sanders. Not really. Bernie was advocating for $2,000 a month actually a long time ago. Now, not recently, because nobody would hear of it. So recently, he's been advocating for $1,200 because he just thought that 2,000 was utterly out of the question. Remember, Bernie never had the veto power. Trump has. You can be sure that if Bernie was the president of the United States and he had the veto power, he would have been out there for 2,000 a month. They wouldn't have gotten anything through unless they passed 2,000 a month. You know that, Rahul. Carmen says, well, they can change the Klan military names later after Adolf Hitler leaves. Rahul says, Vice President-elect Harris is all fluff, no good actions. Carmen says, looks like it, but it's only to get the racists Loeffler and Perdue elected. And Rahul says, 2,000 per month is not a one-shot deal. Yeah, but Trump is not calling for 2,000 a month in this bill. He's calling for a one-shot $2,000. That's what he's calling for. Let's call them what they should be called, disaster relief checks. A lot of people like the term survival checks, but I like disaster relief checks too, Greg. And Rahul Majumdar says, unfortunately, it could work. David Perdue is on the side of his stockbrokers, and his stockbrokers are on his side. And Rahul says Kelly Loeffler is the richest person in Congress, said to be worth $800 million. Rahul Majumdar and the reign of unchallenged obstruction via McConnell will continue throughout the Biden administration. We will pay dearly once again. Barbara Wernick said, Pence said the dumbest thing ever. He made the left's point. He totally highlighted his hypocrisy, didn't he? Cora Emanuel says the corporate news is reporting that Trump is being reckless by demanding $2,000 instead of $600. Unbelievable. They would say that. They always think that Trump is reckless anyway. Hopefully, Georgia will get the vote through to take the Senate. I hope, but the Republicans are cheating down there like nobody's business. They're disenfranchising people, like nobody's business, doing all kinds of highly illegal things to suppress the vote. By the time the courts all straighten it out, of course, these two senators would have taken their seats already. Of course, turnouts for early voting there are huge, huge. I read an article, though, today that said that mail-in voting seemed to be from Republicans down there. On the other hand, maybe these Republicans aren't voting for Perdue and Loeffler. Maybe not. I mean, Perdue and Loeffler, they're opposed to getting stimulus checks. So maybe they're not all voting the way we think they're going to vote. We have to see. Steve Gonzo says, and especially, by the way, if Trump is saying he wants $2,000 checks and Loeffler and Perdue do not want $2,000 checks, then how are those Republicans who are for Trump down in Georgia going to vote? Steve Gonzo says a Pennsylvania Republican pretended to be his dead mom to vote for Trump. Trump campaign blasted it as a case of voter fraud. Yeah, I know. Russell said, I did my one vote. Thank you, Russell. And Carmen said, and the fly on Pence is a sign of the devil. And Rahul says, Jesus Christ was a radical anti-establishment, radical rabble-rousing socialist. He was. Carmen says, is Mitch going to be the Grinch, like always? Barbara Wernick says, Dems are playing a part, no real fight here. Cass says, love to move south again, but Georgia will have to do all blue. I miss living in the South. North Carolina was great before the GOP rule ruined it. Carmen says, I didn't want Trump to win the election. No, no, no. Rahul says, didn't Speaker Pelosi tell Trump not going to happen during the election campaign, the $1.8 trillion deal? Yeah, but Trump came up to $2 trillion, and she was still resisting. But what if Trump had just said, give Pelosi what she wants? Just give her the whole $2.2 trillion she wants. He should have said that, to Mnuchin. He should have said, call her bluff. Give her exactly what she wants. I'm going on Twitter. I'm going to announce we're going to give her exactly what she wants, and you better do it. And there are going to be enough Republicans from the Senate who are going to go along with me that with the Democrats in the Senate, they're going to pass this bill. That's what Trump should have done. If he had done that, he would have been reelected. Carmen says, because Trump is done. And because he doesn't pay attention. Because he doesn't think through things in order to get to the other side. Barbara says, Carmen Muniz, I didn't want Trump, but always knew Biden was the greater evil. We are in trouble. Carmen says, Barbara Wernick, how so? 4 more years of fascism would have been irreversible. I would never say that, but it might have cost an awful lot of American lives in order to reverse it. Barbara says, Trump is crass, can't shut up. Biden is maniacal. It's like they're both evil, but one's smarter than the other. Who's smarter, Trump or Biden? Okay, so I've never been a Biden fan either, but we couldn't do 4 more years, of rump. Yeah, I certainly agree with that. I think that Trump is more dangerous than Biden. I think you'll find that Biden, he may start wars, pushing little countries around, but he's not going to risk a big war with China. He's not going to risk a big war, with Russia. He's not going to risk a big war with Iran. He's always been kind of cautious, arguing caution when it comes to getting involved in the big wars. So, I don't think you'll find Biden killing so many people as Bush and hanging in there to kill so many more, the way Obama did. Carmen said, yeah, just get rid of the leather-faced lush. Steve says, Gordon Chariton, my latest and first in The Intercept investigator. DNC was directly involved in the Iowa caucus app development, countering the DNC denial. Yeah, I know that's true. DNC definitely cheated Bernie. Raul said AOC already was taken off a committee. Has she been taken off a committee, or was she just simply denied a spot at the last minute through an election campaign that was engineered by Nancy Pelosi and Hakeem Jeffries? I think it was the latter, actually. But Carmen Muniz, she was on it already. No, she wasn't on it already. Says, no, she wasn't. She was denied, not actually the leadership, she was denied a spot on the Energy and Commerce Committee. Yes, the Energy and Commerce Committee. Lost 46-13, Kathleen Rice, a right-wing Democrat who, by the way, voted against Nancy Pelosi in 2018 for the speakership, and who was one of the biggest boosters of the TPP in the House, and defected from the Democratic caucus in the fight over the TPA. There were 28 Democrats who defected, and Kathleen Rice was one of the 28. 160 voted against TPA. Kathleen Rice, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and other centrist Democrats voted for the fricking TPA, which opened up the door to the TPP. Fortunately, neither Obama nor Clinton were president to walk through that door and get us into the TPP. But otherwise, they would have done that. By the way, Kathleen Rice only entered the race at the last minute. That was engineered by Pelosi and by Jeffries, because before then it was thought that AOC had that spot all locked up. She had all the background for it. She was the author of the Green New Deal resolution. The establishment Democrats were ready to accept her. She had the endorsement of the dean of her delegation in the state. Who was that? Jerry Nadler. Jerry Nadler was for AOC for that spot. But Kathleen Rice, a Long Island Democrat from a district more right-wing, was given the spot. Or was backed, actually, by the leadership. That's why the vote was 46-13. Carmen says, Rahul Majumdar passed over. Yes, that's what I thought I read too. House Energy and Commerce Committee is a plum appointment, and AOC lost real bad. Pegosi did that as it was a secret vote. Yes, Pegosi did do it. Cora said, I thought the reason for having a squad would be to consolidate power. Why are they wasting it? Barbara Wernick said they aren't all progressives. I think the squad people are progressives. Yes, they are progressives. But the only way to consolidate power is to show you have the power in the first place. That's why you have to use it to replace Pelosi. Carmen Muniz says, that's why I call a traitor. And Raul says, please weed out faux progressives. That's what I think the Progressive Caucus is going to do now. Under Jayapal's leadership, Kay says, we need Nina in there to shake it all up, to continue shaking it up. Remember, Jayapal and the squad have already done a lot to shake it up, and Ro Khanna too. But Nina, she is going to shake it up more. Hello, somebody. And Carmen Muniz says, faux-gressives. Carmen says, call her, correction. And Rahul says, the squad will be sent to Siberia under Biden anyway. No. Biden doesn't have sway in the House. If the new Speaker of the House makes a deal with the progressives, they will keep to that deal. The reason why they will keep to that deal is if they go against that deal and they get even thinner margins or a total loss, in 2022, then the squad will have their revenge on them. They're going to have to keep to their deals. Now, this is dangerous for the squad, too, because if the new speaker does keep to their deals and the progressives get what they want, they got to be successful in delivering the goods on some of it. So the Democrats win in 2022, because if progressive priorities pass, then the Democrats will win the House in 2022 by a larger margin. And they have to be successful in electing more progressives, because undoubtedly a turn again towards the Democrats in the House is going to bring in more centrists. It's going to have that effect too. They're not going to be all progressives, but there will be more progressives. Hopefully, we'll see a doubling of the squad the next time around as well, and a doubling of the whole Progressive Caucus, hopefully. But that's going to be hard. Kay says, it's going to be a long and lonely holiday for me. Please keep in touch with me, you guys. Come to the Zoom meeting tomorrow, Kay. And remember, I will be back on Saturday. Barbara says, but they're out anyway. Frigging fight. Win or lose, fight. Keep fighting. The people will back them. And Rahul says, no Republican can get 218 votes. I know, but they may not need 218 votes. It all depends on who stays home. There are, strategic abstentions, staying home that could take place. Carmen says, just look at it as just another regular day. Steve says, I'll send you a friend request. Kay says, thank you, Steve. Kay says, I would if I could, Carmen, but it doesn't work that way for me. Barbara says, Kay Clark Ryan, I hate this holiday. It's nice for those graced with much. It's always been a struggle for the many. Yeah, I know. It's sad for many, many people who feel isolated and who are lonely. And it's tough. It's a good thing Bonnie and I have each other. It's the greatest thing. Just the greatest thing. Kay says, yes, it's full of sorrow for many of us. Lost my dad and late hubby this time of year, both from cancer. Barbara Wernig, Christ was actually born around April 17th. Oh, really? Was Christ born on Passover? Russ Gorman says, yes, replace Pelosi. It sure feels like a Saturday night. And Nancy Gosling Blackmar says, you were spot on tonight. Thank you. Barbara says, Carmen Muniz will celebrate in the spring. I think Carmen smiled at that one. And Kay says, yes, the money thing turned me off years ago, too. Yeah, it turns us off, too. Steve Wolfbrand said, and it doesn't snow in Palestine. Steve Wolfbrand said, it's Friday night. No work tomorrow. Kay says, my favorite Bible story was Jesus throwing the money changers out of the temple. That was one of my favorite Bible stories too, Kay. Donald F. Switlick says, here are the facts. 1, AOC representing Bernie Kratz wants to replace Pelosi and has publicly stated so. Yes. AOC is not going to deal with the devil and promise to support Pelosi in a vote for Speaker by selling our souls for a vote on Medicare for All now, as Jimmy Dore opines. Many sources, but here is one. Yeah, Michael Moore, Rumble. AOC won't force Pelosi to hold Medicare for All vote. To be elected Speaker, a candidate must receive an absolute majority. I don't know if Michael Moore is right on what he says there. Okay, exactly. I'd like to see the whole quote about what he said, but I'll probably be seeing Rumble tomorrow, the next day, okay, or whatever. But I've examined this very, very carefully, and I know that they have to receive a majority of the votes cast for Speaker. So if people make a vote of present, that counts towards a quorum, but it doesn't count towards the Speaker vote. So by voting present, they can actually lower the majority that is needed to become the Speaker. In one of the elections for Speaker, John Boehner was elected A whole bunch of right-wingers simply voted as present. And I believe John Boehner won with the majority of votes cast, and that was only 208 votes or something like that, or 205 votes, because the Tea Party was trying to demonstrate its power. So a whole bunch of them either stayed away or voted present. Steve says, mine is changing water into wine. And Donald F. Switlick said, no deal with the devil. Bernie Kratz agree with Jimmy Dore's description of the issues, and we all want a floor vote on Medicare for all. The promise to vote for and support Pelosi is the problem. If Bernie Kratz did not promise to support Pelosi, and there's an opportunity to both replace Pelosi and get a floor vote on M4A in the new House, all will be revealed in 2 weeks on January 3rd, 2021, when the House votes a speaker. 2 weeks is not too long to wait. If the Bernie Kratz hold their V, I don't know what that means. Okay. But we have analyzed this very carefully on Twitter and in a number of live streams. Okay, I've done on that. So Donald Switlick, go to my YouTube page at Joseph Firestone, and you will see a whole bunch of streams, okay, and videos on replacing Pelosi and various issues that arise with respect to that. And Barbara says Biden would pick a new war to kill people. Are they so different? He may pick a new war to kill people, and if he supports the Saudis, okay, in Yemen, he'll be contributing to lots and lots of deaths. But Trump, okay, was doing that too. And I think that Biden is more likely to avoid a big war than Trump. Steve Wolfbrand says, Senator McConnell needs a turtleneck hood. Yeah, because he's a turtle. Carmen says, I see what you did there. Kay says, we need you on Facebook, Joe. We can watch a Zoom session on Facebook. You can watch the Zoom session on Facebook. Okay, if I can find the option, I know it exists. If I can find the option to send it to Facebook, then I'll try to send it to Facebook. But I may have to send it to Twitter because we're doing the campaign on Twitter. I should say, okay, I may have to send it, okay, to YouTube, because YouTube is much more accessible to people who have forsaken Facebook and who are active on Twitter, who are important for our campaign. What I prefer to do is to live stream it both to Facebook and to YouTube, and in any case, I will post the Zoom session afterwards. I'm keeping the recording, and I will post the Zoom session both on Facebook and on YouTube, okay, as videos. So you'll be able to watch it there. One way to another. Can we comment to each other too? That's the main reason, okay, I love these, is to talk to all of you. In Facebook, even if it's a video, you can do a watch party, and then people can come to the watch party and can talk together on the watch party. Dolores says that many astrologers have said that Jesus definitely was not a Capricorn. The main issue being that a Capricorn wouldn't sacrifice their life for a belief or cause. We wouldn't? I don't know. I'm a Capricorn. Carmen Muniz says, Aries fits Christ. I doubt it. Steve Brandt says, I know you know your stuff. Laugh out loud. Barbara Wernig. Laugh out loud. Kay says, I'm not too much of a believer in astrology as my dad was a Capricorn. His best day was on Christmas Day. He was the best man I ever knew. And Steve says, but Dolores knows her astrology. I bet she does. Kay says, my dad was my best friend along with my dad. My dad was my best friend along with my dad. Yeah, as well as my dad. He was the only man I ever knew that I could believe the first time and laugh out loud. And Raul says, the GOP gained 10 seats in the House and probably going to keep Senate control. Well, maybe not now. Maybe not now. I don't know how many Georgians want to be denied a $2,000 check because they're voting for Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue. I mean, Trump is really highlighting this. Now, either Perdue and Loeffler are going to vote the $2,000 right now, or they're not going to get elected. I know the Republicans are cheating something awful there, but the vote might be so overwhelmingly against them, the real vote, that they lose anyway. Steve Wilbrand said, Biden, I might have Alzheimer's, but at least I don't have Alzheimer's. Kay says, I read the tarot cards for many years. I read the tarot cards for many years. And the Ouija board, too, laugh out loud. Barbara says, I disagree. Biden will absolutely kill more people. Watch, he's Hillary Evil, a murdering thief. No, I don't believe he's Hillary Evil. I don't believe he's quite that bad. Well, we'll have to see. At this point, I think this is a matter of hunch. And Carmen says, Bernie never called out, okay, the DNC's cheating. Yeah, and one of the results of this is that Alex Padilla just got appointed to the Senate. Big cheater himself. Joe Segura says twice. Steve Wilbrand says Ouija is kind of dangerous. We did it as a kid. Scary. Carmen Yunus says, yep. And Kay says, it's very weird, Steve, but my grandma was an old German gypsy. German gypsy? Is Bonnie watching? Yeah, Bonnie's here. Barbara says, yes, they will win. In fact, Bonnie is sitting right to my left, smiling at me. And Rahul Majunga says, John Conyers M4A bill collected dust under Pelosi. And Obama. Never forget, if Obama had wanted to pass it, he could have passed it. Pelosi would have done anything for him. Steve Wolfbrand said, I can't do Twitter. My head would explode. Kay says, I don't do Twitter. Barbara says, maybe we're all seeing Nancy's fury for wanting her ousted. No stimulus until you love me. Kay says, come on, Joe. Why make it harder than it needs to be? Karen Showalter says, Gemini. Kay says, I'm a Gemini, but I'm not twins.
I'm a Cancer.
But Bonnie's a Cancer. But by the way, what's the fish one? I don't know astrology. What's the fish sign? But Klobuchar is a bitch, says Steve Wolfbrand. She is. Kay says, but my grandma was raised in Austria-Hungary in a caravan. Yeah, my grandma was raised in Austria-Hungary too, but not in a caravan. She was raised in the Carpathian Ukraine, which was part of Hungary at that time. I believe it's now part of Romania. I don't think it's yet part of Ukraine, part of Romania. Carmen says, you two are such an inspiring couple. Thank you. Pisces, of course. Pisces.
Who's Pisces?
Didn't the early Christians, weren't they always making the sign of the fish? So maybe Jesus was Pisces. And Dolores Pierce says Pisces is a fish. Steve Wolfbrand said, I'm a Leo, but I'm not a lion. Kay says, she came to this country in 1901, my grandma. And mine came to this country in... She came to this country in 1912, if I'm not mistaken. I got to think about that. Let me think. No, I think she came to this country in 1914. Actually, because my mother was born in 1915.
Your grandmother was a great cook.
Yeah, my grandmother was a wonderful cook. And my mother was pretty darn good, too. And my aunt was pretty darn good also. But they learned from my grandmother.
And you're a really good cook.
And I'm a really good cook, but I didn't learn what they cook. I mean, I've learned stuff that's completely different. But they cook things like Hungarian goulash. Oh, boy, I love that. Oh, I did love that. And lots of other great things. And my grandmother's Southern fried chicken, somehow, I don't know how, she learned how to cook Southern fried chicken. Well, she called it Southern fried chicken anyway. But hers was the best fried chicken that I ever tasted. In fact, when I was a kid, I was this monumental eater. Really, I was, I don't know, 13, 14, 15. I was a bottomless pit. I would eat a chicken and a half at a setting. Amazing. Carmen says, what explained Jesus's multiplying gift of fishes? Dolores says, Cancer and Pisces are two signs that would sacrifice their life for a belief or cause. So maybe Jesus was born under Pisces. So what are the months that correspond to Pisces, Dolores? And Carmen says, now I want some Hungarian goulash. The way my grandmother made it, it was a beef stew with onions, okay, and also potatoes. I think there were some tomatoes in it, but it was not so heavy with the tomatoes that it ever took on a pink color, okay, or red color. It looked more like a beef stew, okay, with potatoes in it. And she never used any wine in it or anything like that. There was not that kind of thing to aid her cooking. She just stewed it. That she was an amazing cook, really. Carmen Mina says, buttermilk marinade is the secret to fantastic fried. Unfortunately, we kept a kosher home, so my grandmother couldn't use a buttermilk marinade. I don't know. Maybe she made it with chicken fat. Maybe that's what it was. Something about it was really great, though. Oh, boy. Kay says, my mom was born in 1910. My dad was born in 1907. Laugh out loud, I was born in 1953. Laugh out loud, I was adopted inside the family. The biggest blessing in my life. Lana says, all teenagers are monumental eaters, especially boys. I used to come home from work and have my one and a pile of his friends. They ate everything in sight. Yes. Carmen Muniz says that was the paprika. Yeah, maybe it was the paprika. Yeah. Yeah, that was the paprika, probably. She did use paprika in it. I remember that. Of course, because she came from Hungary. So. And Anthony smiles at 11:18. So it's now 11:18. I'm going to say good night. Thanks for coming. Thanks for staying so long. Thanks for the conversation. I'll do my best to find out how to live stream the Zoom meeting tomorrow to Facebook and YouTube at once. But certainly I will have the video up. Good night, Russ. Good night, all. Have a great night. And have a great Christmas. Have a wonderful Christmas. Steve Wolfbrand said, my mom was German. Sauerkraut. Ugh, terrible.
Did she make Spetzel?
Did your mother make Spetzel, Bonnie asks. Because Bonnie's father was German. And
From Cologne.
he made Sauerbraten and Spetzel, and it was delicious. He marinated it all night. It was it was a powerful mix when he got through with it. And he cooked it with lard. He used lard with it. He marinated it in red wine all night. It was delicious.
Yeah.
It was delicious. Sauerbraten. Yeah, Bonnie's father was German from Cologne, which is a suburb of Cologne, I believe. I think that Cologne is spelled K-O with an umlaut, L-N. Yes, it's pronounced Curlin.
Yeah.
And Steve says, good night, Merry Christmas. Lana says, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Steve says, no, a lot of cabbage. Probably red cabbage, right?
No, yeah.
Kay says, you have to make kraut, right? Laugh out loud. It's good. And Lana says, I love Sauerbraten. I don't think we know how to make Sauerbraten, do we? Not supposed to eat any beef any longer anyway. Because beef is bad. I can eat chicken, I can eat fish. But I'm not supposed to eat that much of that either. So I try to keep as vegan as I can possibly stand. Anyway, good night, folks. Sleep tight. Happy dreams.